Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now, today I thought we'd check out some neighbor related drama. You know what I'm like with that good stuff. And our first one's coming from XO, who says, neighbor has gone nuts since having our shared property line surveyed, revealing she actually has about 5 less feet than she thought. I find the whole thing hilarious. My 39 female and my husband 49 male moved into this house in 2018. The neighbor in question technically lives on the cross street to ours, but our driveway is adjacent to a backyard. When we moved here, we were under the impression that the property extended about 3 to 4 feet-ish beyond the edge of our driveway, which was fine. We've used this as a guide for where we mow that strip of lawn. Generally, we would mow 2.5 to 3 mower widths, and it was never an issue. This lady is in her 60s or 70s. I'm not really sure. Like I said, never had a problem at all. Had a few brief conversations with her, and the same with my husband and hers during the first couple of years we lived here. Not really even enough to consider them acquaintances, but enough to be civil and give the occasional wave. Her husband passed away in 2020 or 21. I can't really remember. I don't know if it was COVID related or not, but he had health issues beforehand, so I'm not sure. Since then, she had hired a lawn care service to mow, leaf blow, etc. At the time, my husband worked a second shift, so we would sleep in a bit most days till 10 or so. Our bedroom is adjacent to our driveway, and the way the room is, the only way to put a bed is with the head along that wall. But that wall has 2 huge windows. It's an older house and the windows are pretty thin. We started getting woken up at 7 AM weekly to lawnmower and leaf blowing directly outside our window. Finally, my husband checked it out and found the lawn boy driving his lawnmower up and down our driveway to access her yard and standing in our driveway to blow leaves. This would literally be less than 10 feet from our heads as we slept. He had enough and went out and got this guy's attention and told him, look, this is my driveway. It's not a thoroughfare for her yard because it's convenient. The kid, I don't know, early 20-ish, apologized. But this lady has had it out for us ever since. About a year later, my teenager was raking leaves to the apron of the yard because our town comes along and sucks them up every year. He was putting them on our side and she came out and yelled at him saying they were on her lawn. He said he thought the property was from the telephone pole over. She said it wasn't. Whatever. Maybe a month later I was returning from the store and saw she was trying to pick up sticks in her yard. The way she moves makes it clear that she has back issues, like she can't bend so she has to crouch and reach. I asked her from my driveway, Mrs. So-and-so, do you want some help? No answer. Maybe she didn't hear me. Louder. Mrs. So-and-so? She didn't turn around, just no. With an attitude. Fine. I went inside and figured she was still salty about the whole lawn boy situation. A few months ago, my husband was hosing out our trash can and dumped the water along the edge of the street on our strip of land. The street has storm gutters because we get a lot of rain. She had a fit about it and came out to yell at him. He told her he isn't some kid she can yell at and to leave him alone. Within a week, she hired a guy to survey the land. Come to find her land ends on just the opposite side of the telephone pole, which gives her like 5-ish less feet. She's still butthurt about it, but whatever. So about a week or so later this evening, I'm packing up the car for my husband to go to work, as he's on nights now, and I just kind of glance in the direction of their house as I start the car, and see her and some guy standing at the window, just fucking staring at me. I'm literally doing the same thing I do every night when I pack up the car. I don't know what the deal was. So I come inside and say and tell my husband these people are just standing there being creepy and it's unnerving. He goes out to put something in the car and this guy comes out of her house and goes off about how we're harassing her and all that. My husband tells the guy to back off. I'm just trying to get ready for work. So the police get called and there's a whole dumb thing. Her and this guy get trespassed for our property and my husband gets trespassed for her property. I stayed inside during the whole police talk so I didn't get anything. She's literally crying to the cop that we have cameras looking into her windows. We have security cameras for the same reason most people do, in case something happens. Like we give a fuck about what's going on in her place, lol. The officer told her we can have 100 cameras if we want. Last week she had the city survey. They put little flags where the gas line or whatever is, so we can assume she's going to build a fence. Then she cuts down this huge bush in her yard. That's always been there. So again, we're excited she's going to build a fence. Monday morning, 6 a.m, she's standing in a window watching me put our garbage can to the curb. Today, her daughter comes and puts up a security camera pointing into our garage area and backyard, which she couldn't even see until they cut the bush down. We're cracking up. It's freaking hilarious. So of course my husband now intends to get 3 more cameras for that side of the house to freak her out even more. I don't know. Maybe we're being petty a-holes. I think it's mostly funny, especially since it all started by us not wanting people in our driveway. Edit for those asking for info. For those mentioning a potential for dementia, I really don't know. I haven't spoken to her in a couple of years. However, her daughters, she has 2 I think, are there for several hours every day. Either one or both of them. If there's a concern of dementia and or delusion, they need to seek some kind of treatment for her. Also, a couple of months before her husband passed, she approached me while I was outside doing something to gossip about her new next door neighbor. This new neighbor's backyard is adjacent to the rest of our driveway. During this conversation, I mentioned the property line because I was under the impression it was a few feet or so, as I mentioned before. Her response was, "We've lived here for years. I don't know where the property line is and I don't really care." Shortly after, Opie comes in with an update and says she had a fence built. My husband was out clearing leaves off of the car in the evening after the construction was finished. This is not unusual. He always clears the leaves off of the car while getting ready to leave for work. Well, out she came. I couldn't see her as I was on our back patio, but she was screaming like a fucking lunatic. "Stay away from that fence and get away from that fence. And my personal favorite, leave that fence alone, you son of a bitch." We're happy she built a fence. He wasn't touching it. And what the fuck does she think he's gonna do? Knock the damn thing over? We have zero intention of vandalizing her fence or property. I find it super silly and even unhinged that she put up a fence, which in my mind says, this is my side and that is yours. But then proceeds to scream at him for being on our side. He didn't even hear her, and when I told him, he didn't say anything back because he didn't want to give her a reason to call the cops or whatever. So that's that for now. We'll see what, if anything, happens next. The top commenter on this one, from ChipChop666, says, put up a fence on what used to be her property. And there was a lots of other comments telling Opie to be petty, like getting some of those little gnomes bending over showing their asses and putting them on her side. Someone suggested getting a wind spinner to keep her camera busy. Didn't know that would work. And there was someone else being a bit more sensible about it, saying, you know, right now, this woman is willing to go much crazier and extreme lengths than you are. You know, saying that everyone's finding it funny, but to her, she's only focused on you. So don't egg her on and, you know, just blank her and put up a fence if you need to, or a high bush or something along those lines. And I used to see this sort of stuff when I watched these daytime nightmare neighbor shows, and it's crazy how hyper-focused they get on their neighbor to the point of just craziness. I watched one episode once, and the neighbor accidentally left their bin on a part of their garden or something for some time. And from there, it absolutely escalated to this neighbor, like this situation, hyper-focused on them. And at one point, they put a hose in their back garden under the fence and tucked it at one corner and just left it on for days, flooding their garden. And the person didn't notice until it was like completely just like bogged. And it was just like loads of stupid little shit like that. And speaking of shit, one of them, this person was going around like their local neighborhood collecting bags of dog shit and then throwing it over into their garden. It's just madness, isn't it? But our next little story comes from Errol Clements. And I haven't actually read this one yet. I just seen the title and I thought, you know, that's got to be worth a read. It's only a small one. It says, I get this title. Neighbor pooped in my yard. Hello, neighbors from hell. I didn't really know who else to talk to about this, so I've come to complain about it on Reddit instead. As you can tell by the title of the post, I've recently had an issue with my neighbor. He's a middle-aged man who I thought I got along with, until the incident. I returned home after work one night. I'm a trolley collector for my local supermarket, but sometimes they let me on the cashiers, and found a steaming pile of defecate in my backyard. By jingoes, I thought to myself, what creature has committed this feral act in my backyard? I recently had security cameras installed due to the insistence that I need them from my children. due to an unrelated accident where I sleepwalked out of my house and had no idea where I was. I'm 78, so that sort of thing happens. So I had a look at the cameras and was shocked to see my neighbor Derek committing that foul crime in my backyard. I don't know what I did to deserve this, and I'm terrified that he's going to do it again. Any advice would help. Signing off, Errol Clements. Big old Bitty says to this one, plot twist. Your neighbor was committing a revenge act of yard pooping because when you were sleepwalking that one night, he caught you on his security camera shitting in his backyard. Alternate plot twist, he was also sleepwalking. I don't know. I just immediately thought of these silly possibilities and couldn't stop chuckling, so I thought I'd share them. The garden shit wars of 2025 have begun. And of course, there's always a lot of reasons. People always talk about, like, is it dementia? Is it some sort of mental illness that's causing him to do this? Because shitting in someone's yard is an extreme one, isn't it? I mean, if you're trying to get revenge or something along those lines, the first thing in my mind I don't think about shitting in someone's yard, that's for sure. But other than that, I'm not sure how I can help you, Errol. Get a sprinkler. Pat Penguin 26 comes in with their post saying, my lunatic neighbor got arrested. I just had to share this story somewhere because it is a beautiful display of karma that actually didn't take that long. My wife and I moved into our very first apartment/own place back in October of 2024. Now, most of our neighbors are actually fine. We don't talk to them or make friends, but they don't give us any issues. I should also note, for context, our apartments recently got a new manager after years of having a very neglectful one before we moved in. So things are basically improving and getting whipped back into shape. Our neighbor, who lives not directly across from us, but just one door down on the opposite side, always gave us sketchy vibes. In the short amount of time we've lived here, she has a hideous doormat that said, "Come back with a warrant." And one time I heard her out on the patio talking on the phone super loudly. "They're profiling me. Even the sheriff thinks so." Like, okay, lady, not sure why you think the whole complex needs to hear your dirty laundry, but go off. She has 2 kids. A 4-year-old boy who plays with stones. He throws them all over the breezeway path and is never cleaned up. And a monster of a teenager we had an issue with. To briefly explain the incident, the daughter's big truck was sitting parked in the middle of the parking lot and was blocking all the spaces. My father-in-law and I had been returning from a short Walmart trip and we had nowhere else to park other than this neighbor's spot. So we pulled in. Took not more than 2 minutes to unload, and here comes the teenager daughter. Instantly had a snotty attitude. "You can't park there, that's my mum's spot." When I explained to her about the truck blocking the way, the little bitch flips me off and drives away in it. I confront the mother, and while she told me that she would talk to her daughter, it didn't seem like much was really going to be done. She just acted really weird, like she wasn't all there. Another little detail I should note is that they had a Ring camera and one of those fancy button code devices on their door. We live in a small country town, not a city. No one else has these types of things on their doors. Then things got even weirder. She started letting a neighbor's cat inside her house. The cat clearly didn't want anything to do with her and was fast to run out and back upstairs where he lives, and she began to stare rudely out of her window at my wife. My wife walks with a cane due to an injured knee that hasn't healed, and this woman would just gawk at her like she was some circus freak. It pissed me off so bad I almost knocked on her door and questioned her about it. We decided not to unless it happened again. Well, fast forward to last week. My wife and I were at home. It was evening and we heard a loud knocking on one of our neighbor's doors with the infamous, "Please, open up!" We were able to see from our patio it was indeed the weird-ass neighbor. To say we were laughing our asses off inside our apartment was an understatement. She was arrested and we found out the following. She is a repeating offender. She was arrested in a nearby town a few years back and served jail time for using meth and child endangerment. She was charged this time with drug possession and distribution, child endangerment, illegal possession of a firearm, due to being a convicted felon. On one hand, it saddens me, such trash lives in our otherwise peaceful little town. On the other, I'm glad she's gone. With the new manager, it's unlikely she'll be allowed to remain living here, even if she somehow gets the charges dropped. Our lease is very strict about criminal behavior, hoping we don't see her or a bratty kid again anytime soon. And she has the doormat that says, "Come back with a warrant." Oof. And we have another absolute absolute random title from Cold Wrangler 9458, who says, "Neighbor throws her urine on my tree. How do I prove it is pee?" I regret to inform you that I, like all of you, have had to join this page due to a nightmare neighbor. I'm a first-time homebuyer, 32-year-old female. I bought an adorable house downtown 5 years ago. When I bought the house, the daughters of the woman that lived there told me to stay away from my neighbor because she is absolutely nuts. I will note that I take great pride in my home. It's immaculate. I painted it and done so much work to it. I'm quiet and respectful. All the other neighbors are wonderful and we are friends. There is a significant mental health component, and she has come over to my property yelling at me a couple of times for things that don't even make sense to type out. One of the neighbors that I am friends with told me that she was on a walk and she saw the crazy neighbor dumping a 5-gallon bucket of liquid onto some new trees that I planted. I planted 3 trees on the street line between our homes. I got permits for the trees. Immediately after I purchased them, she pushed all 3 of them to the ground. I was in denial about it, but I replanted them and it happened again a couple of times. So I decided to get some cameras. I put some cameras out and I've caught her every night around 9 PM and 3:30 AM coming out to the tree with a container of liquid and dumping it on the tree. I sent the first video to my sister, who told me to go outside and smell the liquid. Oof. Oh dear, that just made me gag. I was thinking it would be something like bleach or cleaning supplies. I'm a nurse and quickly realized that I had just put my hand into a urine. For the last month, I've caught her at least once a night coming outside with a little cup full of urine and dumping it onto one of the trees. Fortunately, my brother-in-law is another one of my neighbors, and he is a civil education attorney. We are trying to come up with everything we can to make the most money from her in court. We're just going to go to small claims court. We're going to get a quote so that she will have to repair that whole strip of grass where she is dumping the liquid. There's a couple of other things that we will get her on. My question is, does anyone have any idea how we could test that it is urine? It would be great to provide that proof. It seems like proof enough that she's coming out with a urine amount of liquid a couple of times a night. She is so stupid and thinks that the cameras don't work at night, but they are arguably much better at night. Any suggestions would be much appreciated. I'm keeping my distance until we take her to court and not trying to cross paths with her. I know they have synthetic urine test kits. Is there anything like a urine test kit that proves it's urine? Really hard for me to find. I'm also just trying to think outside the box of how we can prove that it is in fact her urine. When I touched it, it smelled like urine. I've smelt my fair share of urine after 13 years in hospital. It was truly shocking. I'd be happy to share one of the many videos if I was able, but Reddit does not allow me to upload a video in this post. The first commenter says to OP, call the non-emergency line and report to the police. Show them the footage on your cameras. Press charges if possible and get a trespass from your property. A restraining order if it doesn't stop. It doesn't matter what she's pouring out. It's illegal to dump your trash in someone else's yard. Ski says maybe she needs a wellness check. OKExit says involve a landscaping company to find out what's wrong with your trees. Get them to put it in writing it's taking on urine. Maybe a small move, but could lean things in your favor to have a professional evaluate the cause. Doesn't matter whose urine it is. She's obviously not watering your plants for you, and this sounds like vandalism could be brought into play. And there was a lot of people mentioning getting UV lights to prove it and then showing your camera so you can show it, etc. But that's absolutely mad. Imagine looking at your cameras and then seeing your neighbor night after night chucking cups of piss over your trees. The thought, it's a process of someone collecting urine, bodily fluids to damage someone else's property is wild in itself. And the fact that she does it at the same time every night, there's a time period where she will do it, shows it's become like a calculated routine. And there's every chance that, arseholes are just going to arsehole, right? Sometimes people are just arseholes, so I'm not taking away from that, but I can't help but think, there's something mental health going on there as well. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't make her any less responsible for her actions, but OP should absolutely be documenting this like they are with the cameras, maybe even reporting this just to get the ball rolling, just to get some sort of trail going. But just a quick one before we wrap this up. When I was younger, we used to know this guy. Let's call him Fred. And looking back now, I can certainly see, you know, mental health issues, etc., etc. Something was going on, right? I don't know exactly what it was, but this dude used to, in his house, in his bedroom, because he lived on like the top floor of flats, he had a toilet in his house, working toilet. We knew his brother, we got along with his brother, played with him all the time, etc. But his older brother would literally search the streets for like plastic bottles, wee in them, and then chuck them out the window to the back area or on the grass. I mean, there's nothing else to that story. It's just one that popped into my head when we're talking about pee. Just the way my brain works. It's like when I'm reading these stories, like a little vault will open and information would just pour out. Information from the past. My bloody brain. Anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? Do you have your own neighbor-related drama? I do love covering a neighbor-related story every once in a while. It's one of my favorite things. So if you've got a bit of your own little neighbor-related story, something from the past, something that's happening now, something you may have heard of from a family friend, or something along those lines, don't forget to add it on r/MarkNarrations over on Reddit. You can create your own little throwaway account there if you want to do so. Very easy to do. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the story, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.